I just love the game as soon as I started playing it. If you're at a hockey game, you're not sitting there on your phone, not paying attention, because if your favorite player's on the ice, you've got to know, because you're out there for 30, 40 seconds and then someone else is on the ice.
That's truly what attracted me to the sport because it's non-stop action.
That's how fast it goes.
The sort of fan following that they had, it's quite clear that the sport is going to different countries, different cities, and it's expanding.
These countries are upsetting a top team that's supposed to be winning this tournament. You want to see these upsets because there have been.
What extent is kind of allowed in the sport and what is kind of crossing the line?
Obviously, hockey's a physical game. Everyone's like, all right, this is going to be a bloodbath. I don't think it was. I think he honestly almost murdered him.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of All About Sports, the podcast. Before we get into this week's episode, let me quickly remind you of last week's episode. We discussed the UEFA Champions League final, how Chelsea's season went, how Manchester City's season went, and also kind of Pep Guardiola's goals and aspirations for Manchester City and where he succeeded and where he's failed. But now let's get into this week's episode. We have a very special guest this week, Sam Hossack, who is an avid follower of ice hockey. As we've mentioned, before on our episodes, our goal for this podcast is really to cover as many sports as we can, especially sports that we ourselves don't know that much about, hoping to kind of get more insight both for ourselves as well as for our viewers and listeners so they can learn more about different sports. Along with Sam, of course, are your usual hosts. We have Shubham, Mazhar, and myself, Rishabh. Let me give a brief introduction to Sam before we get right into it. Sam Hossack is an avid sports fan and a really avid follower of ice hockey. He has a media company called Sam Hossack Media, which was launched in March 2020. And he has a great knowledge of the Ontario Hockey League and the junior levels in Ontario as he's worked at the Junior A, Junior B, and Junior C levels of the game of hockey and is a huge fan of baseball and lacrosse as well. With that, Sam, let me get to you and kind of ask A, how you're doing, and B, how you enjoying the NHL playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot, boys, for having me on here. It's a blast to be on here for sure. I really got in this sport of hockey when I was young, probably 2 or 3. Honestly, I think my parents just probably threw skates on me as like any kid in Canada, really. Just were like, all right, you're gonna play hockey. And I mean, I really kind of fell in love with it then. I live in Orillia, Ontario, which is about an hour and a half north of Toronto. So we have the Ontario Hockey League 30 minutes south in Barrie. So I would grow up watching games there and really got into it kind of that way, I'd say. And watching guys like Brian Little, Hunter Tremblay, just to name a few as a kid, just idolizing those guys, just loving hockey and just love playing it growing up. Second part there, NHL playoffs. I mean, it's amazing to see the talent that's out there this year. I mean, obviously, as a Leaf fan, I really thought they were going to have a deep run. Everyone really thought they would. But, I mean, Colorado's an absolute wagon to watch right now, and I think they're going to go all the way. So it's great to have NHL hockey on. Again, I mean, it was 115, 116 plus nights in a row in the regular season, and they just continue it with all the hype in the playoffs now. So it's great.
That's absolutely fantastic to hear, Sam. And as people who maybe don't have a team, we'll also lend our support to your team as well, so that you have 3 more hands on deck. But Sam, we did want to discuss a little bit something that you're very passionate about, that you kind of brought to light for us, very honestly, which was the Robert Morris University's hockey. That's a D1 hockey, hockey school. Recently had some challenges with scholarships and actually the sport. So maybe do you want to go into that and describe some of the challenges that the athletes are facing and what the situation is with that university?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the listeners that don't know, Robert Morris, a Division I school based in New York, it kind of got brought up when the season kind of ended. It was kind of brought up about a month ago or so. And I kind of saw it on Twitter and wanted to read more into it as a hockey fan, and I saw a lot of outrage going towards this. So I was like, okay, I got to read more into this before I even get an opinion on it. But basically, to sum it up, 2 decades of progress and growth were reduced to rubble, and a tradition of excellence simply disappeared with the snap of the fingers, because that's what it was. That's what happened when Robert Morris decided to drop their men's and women's Division I hockey teams I mean, in my opinion, they're taking away the opportunity for these men and women to play Division One hockey. You grow up in Canada, the United States, and you dream of playing this, either CIS in Canada or NCAA in the States. And to play a year or a couple of years, like some of the people have done at that school, and just have it completely washed away over nothing, it's not fair. And I think it really needs to be talked about more. And it definitely is getting a lot of traction in the States. I mean, Barstool Sports is kind of all over it. They're getting support from NHL guys. Everyone's really doing their part. But I mean, to cut the men's and women's programs, it's disgusting and disgraceful. They're saying they were doing it to align their offerings more closely to similar nationally ranked universities of their size. But those universities also have Division One programs. So, I mean, I don't get it. A little backstory on men's and women's success over the years. The men's team won 2014 Atlantic Hockey Postseason Championship. So 7 years ago, they're winning a postseason championship. And then that kind of started a run of 6 consecutive trips to the Atlantic Hockey semifinals and 2 regular season championships. That's in the last 6 years. And on the women's side, this year, they won the CHA playoffs. So they were a playoff champion this year. And at the end of the year, they're thinking that they're going into a meeting, as I read in an article. The women's players are going in their meeting thinking that they're going to find out when they're going to get their CHA playoff championship rings. And they go in this meeting and you get told their career at Robert Morris is done. It's awful to say that a school is doing this. I mean, the other thing for the women's side, and I think it applies to men's too, there's a ripple effect of this. Removing the team is more devastating for college hockey alone, not just Robert Morris. In the division that they're in, you need 6 teams to get a bid for the national championship, or for the national tournament. Now with Robert Morris cutting their program, there's 5 in that division. So, I mean, there is hope to add a team, but if you add a team, you're not going to have the success that Robert Morris had. So, I mean, you're basically taking away the opportunity of 5 other schools to make the NCAA tournament. Now, I mean, the NCAA, I'm sure they'll jump in and be able to make it fair for these teams to come in and make it where you can still get those 3 spots. But, I mean, it's brutal. I don't know. Right now, there is hope that maybe Robert Morris changes their mind. But just to wrap it up, right now, good people have lost their jobs and student athletes are losing their scholarships basically because if they want to continue playing hockey, they need to go to another school. And I mean, at the end of the day, for people that don't know in the NCAA, it is easy to transfer. I know a lot of people do it sometimes after a couple of years if they don't fit in properly, but I mean, it's something you don't want to do. You might be living across the country already, and you might have to live farther away from your family to continue playing. So, yeah, I don't get it.
No, thanks so much for bringing this to light and describing in such detail, Sam, kind of the situation, because it's really, really relevant to kind of other themes that we discuss on this podcast, which is a lack of funding and a lack of support for maybe non-traditional massive sports. And while ice hockey is a massive sport in the US, it may not necessarily be the biggest from an NCAA perspective. NCAA is, largely football and basketball, basically. So maybe from an NCAA's perspective is not a major sport. So thanks for bringing that to light to us. We love to have these conversations on sports that maybe don't get the limelight or support that are needed. And I'm sure extremely tough for the student athletes who kind of were assuming they're going into next year, they have a plan set for, continuing another year of student athlete life. So extremely challenging, and thanks for bringing that up. Sam, kind of wanted to, switch over to, to the pro leagues, to the NHL, and, kind of bring to light a major hit that happened last week that, again, you brought to light for us. Mark Scheifele absolutely slamming into Jake Evans in the playoff game between the Jets and the Canadiens, absolutely slams into him. Evans is now out, I believe, pretty much indefinitely with a concussion. They'll see, I probably assume, based on additional screening, and then Shifley, I believe, has gotten a 4-game suspension. So, Sam, a couple of things we want to ask you. One, obviously, your thoughts on the entire situation around that specific hit, but more broadly, in ice hockey, we know that there is some amount of aggression and violence that is somewhat accepted in the game. So for our viewers and us who maybe aren't as well versed with it, could you give us some understanding of what extent is kind of allowed in the sport, what extent is acceptable, and what is kind of crossing the line? And then maybe describe some of the more modern day challenges that it's posing because of additional concussion protocols that we're seeing in sports, additional injury protocols that are being reviewed and being assessed. So can you give us kind of an all-round review of what amount of aggression is kind of permitted in ice hockey?
Yeah, I think really this kind of really would start, I guess, with the John Tavares injury against the Canadiens in round 1. I thought that was kind of going to be the worst injury that would happen in playoffs. Obviously, you don't want to see something happen to a player, especially in your favorite team as a Leaf fan. But that was definitely hard to watch. And I mean, it's hard to see, even as a Leaf fan, a Canadiens player go down like that. I mean, for Shifley to do that, I mean, I know him a little bit. He played in Barrie. I grew up watching him and would met him 100+ times probably after games. And he's just the most down to earth guy. He doesn't play like that. And it's in the heat of a moment. He's coming back and he's trying to make a play and he doesn't think he has the chance to make a play. And then he makes the hit. I mean, you stride 200 feet down the ice and you make a hit like that, you're not trying for the puck. And he's even said in an interview that he was trying to stop the puck from going in the net. He's trying to prevent a goal. That's the right thing to say, but you don't need to do that hitting a guy like that. Again, it's not the way Shifley plays, but I think it was a predatory hit. You've got a stick that's 5 feet long, and he had enough room to put that stick in front of the puck before it goes in the net and prevent a goal and not even make any contact with Jake Evans. He didn't do that. He didn't attempt to move his stick out towards the puck. He just went right for the hit. And I mean, as much of a predatory hit I think it is, he didn't directly go for the head. I think it was just a mere reaction where Evans' head was already down because he wasn't looking for Shifley to come hit him. He was just looking to make the play. And I mean, going around the net like that, people do it probably 50, 100 times in a game and no one really notices it because you're just trying to make the play. And I mean, it's unfortunate. I mean, I don't think it was a hit. I think he honestly almost murdered him. Hits like that don't have a place in the game, but it's tough to see a star player like that who doesn't have a past history of doing this because he doesn't play on the edge like that like other guys in the league. And I mean, as a Shifley fan, it was tough to see. But the second part there, I mean, obviously hockey's a physical game. We've seen it many times throughout regular seasons over the years, and especially this year, huge hits and stuff. I mean, look at the Tom Wilson situation against the New York Rangers. That was totally unavoidable. I mean, the listeners don't know, it was basically a brawl where he punched a guy who was down on the ice already, starts this brawl, throws Artemi Panarin to the ice and hits him a couple times. And they don't even suspend Wilson. And he's a repeat offender. So 2 nights later, they play each other again after this happens. So everyone's like, all right, this is going to be a bloodbath. Opening face-off, there's a brawl. There's 3 guys fighting each other, and Wilson's not even on the ice. So, I mean, for the game of hockey, I've been critical sometimes of NHL player safety because they're not consistent. You needed to suspend Wilson on that exact play, and look what it led to. There was 6 fights in the first 7 minutes of that hockey game, and Wilson ended up having to fight. I don't get it. It's something that the NHL player safety really honestly needs to work on and figure it out. I mean, Nazem Kadri is a repeat offender. He gets suspended every single time. So where's the consistency? I mean, as a Leaf fan, he has done some stupid stuff for the Leafs. And I mean, I don't know. It's just consistency is key in hockey, and it's something that needs to be figured out for sure.
So Sam, I would like to jump in really quickly and talking about the sport from a more broader aspect. Like Rishabh mentioned that the sport is very popular, obviously in the US and Canada. But what do you feel are the challenges that this sport has, other than obviously the weather limitations? What do you feel are the challenges in terms of global expansion? So while obviously ice hockey is a sport that is, it's an amazing sport and it's loved, but it's played in very few countries. So if a sport like this has to go globally, what do you feel are some of the challenges that the sport would have?
I mean, I don't really see that many challenges. I mean, there are more countries that over the last 20, 30 years that are really kind of getting into it. I mean, right now, the World Hockey Championships are going on. And that's a tournament that's kind of looked at every year because it's held in May and into June. And it's something that if the NHL players aren't in their seasons, they can go to. And I mean, there are some NHL players that are at this tournament this year. Um, but you've got teams that really kind of expand and get a broader chance, especially this year because Team Canada didn't send a lot of the NHL players that seasons were done that should have been there. So Canada dropped their first 3 games of the tournament to Germany, Latvia, and someone else. So these countries are upsetting a top team that's supposed to be winning this tournament. The experiences there, I mean, even in the World Junior Tournament for under 20, there's teams like Germany's in this tournament, Kazakhstan's been in the tournament, Italy's in the World Championship. So it's kind of like honestly great to see these countries actually expanding into these tournaments because I mean 10, 15 years ago you wouldn't have had this in there. And I mean every year you don't really want to see the powerhouses, like you really want to see a tournament of Canada, Russia, United States, Czech, Sweden, those countries. You, as much as a great tournament that's going to be, you want to see these upsets because there have been. I mean, I went to a World Junior in 2018 in Buffalo, and I was at a game where Slovakia beat the United States. Who hears about that? It's not heard of, and the U.S. were a powerhouse and almost won a gold medal that year. So I mean, the exposure is definitely getting there. I mean, I'm sure there are countries that really want to get into hockey that might not be able to, but it's definitely something that's getting better, and I'm glad to see it as a hockey fan.
No, I think that's lovely. If the sport is getting so much exposure, I think every sport it needs that sort of exposure so it can go on a global scale. And from own like one of my own personal experiences when I was doing my undergrad, I was in the UK, and UK is a country which is a football. It's a football country. It's a footballing nation, England. And out there, I got a chance to witness an ice hockey match. That's my only match I've ever witnessed, and the sort of fan following that they had, it's quite clear that the sport is going to different countries, different cities, and it's expanding. My second question to you would be around the women's game. Obviously, the men's game is very dominant, and I believe the women's game is also slowly and steadily growing. What is like in general your thoughts about the women's game, and how do you see it as of today, and where do you see like potentially where can it go?
Yeah, there's a team in Canada actually in the National Women's Hockey League now, the Toronto Six, but they've got that league going for them. I mean, you've obviously got Division One women's teams that are at a top level, just like Division One men's teams. Obviously, you don't have a National Hockey League, professional league for the women, but I mean, the NWHL is their professional league. I mean, it's great to see. They had a successful year. The Boston Pride ended up winning the championship. They were in a bubble situation all year. Only got to play a handful of games. Had teams withdraw because of COVID. They had a 2-3 week break between playing games and then championship weekend just because of this pandemic. But it definitely is getting a lot of traction. I mean, the big thing that happened in the offseason is their salary cap for teams went up from 150,000 to 300,000. So they get $150,000 bonus for just the league. Like it's unbelievable that it's getting the traction that it is. It's definitely a very exciting league to watch. I watched a handful of games this year just to really get into it, and we had up in Canada the last couple of weeks a secret dream tour where they had a couple different teams and stuff, and I mean that was definitely a fun thing to watch. And we have the Women's World Championships happening in Canada in August in Calgary this year. It was supposed to happen in March in Halifax, Nova Scotia, but the government decided a day before the tournament started that COVID was too serious with about 25 cases in the province. I mean, I don't understand that, but do what you want, Nova Scotia. You definitely messed that one up. But it's great to see that they get this tournament. That week is definitely going to be a good one. I'm excited to see that, and I'm glad that they got to actually have this tournament, because in Nova Scotia last year at the start of this pandemic, they canceled it too and never rescheduled it. So the women that haven't played for 2 years, although they're playing with their respective teams, they haven't played at a national stage. And a lot of people are like, okay, whatever, like they still get to play games. On a national stage, you've got the Olympics next year. These girls haven't played on a national stage in 2 years now. And now they've got one tournament to show what they've got for their country for the Olympics next year. I mean, obviously it's going to go based off regular season for NCAA or wherever they're playing, and then this tournament. But you need these tournaments as women's players because of the fact that they don't get a lot of exposure already. It's something that definitely needs to be looked at more, and it definitely is growing. I love, as a hockey fan, what they're doing for women's hockey. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more they can do and they will be doing. Even just a small like dream gap tours. You don't see that happening in men's hockey, obviously, because they don't need it. But to kickstart women's hockey, it's something that really actually helps a lot.
That sounds fantastic. And I feel women's sport is just generally looked down upon so much. It's not only hockey. So it's good to hear that, there are initiatives now being taken up for the growth of women's sport as well. Sam, I'm just going to transition into another question. Now, I'll tell you honestly, what drove me to ice hockey was the speed of it. And a fun fact for everyone, ice hockey is the fastest sport in the world. It's literally the fastest sport in the world. So that's truly what attracted me to the sport, because it's non-stop action. And the fact is, players go in and out, the rolling substitutions that happen. So you really don't know who's on the ice at a particular time. So you have to be on throughout. That's what I love about it. What drew you to ice hockey, and what, apart from the fact that, you are Canadian after all. So like you said, you've been pretty much born with skates. So what else is what truly attracted you to the sport?
Yeah, I mean, I think the two real things that people probably think about Canadians is we live in igloos and we're probably born out of a room with hockey skates on. But I mean, yeah, I just love the game as soon as I started playing it. I probably can't really remember that far back what really drew me to the game, but it was something fun I loved to play. And then over the years, I mean, I wasn't like a high level player really, like played house league and a little bit, but I mean, it was a fun thing to do, and then I got into it over the years. And I mean, it's just something that I absolutely love to do. Same thing with baseball and getting into lacrosse the last couple of years. It's just amazing to be a part of a sport like that and be able to be like in a fast-paced game like that. Obviously, baseball and lacrosse aren't as fast-paced as hockey, but I mean, it's unreal to be able to be out there and just be flying around the ice with like your best friends and being able to have success every single year. So yeah, over the years, I mean, as Canadians, you've got the Ontario Hockey League as like your dream as a kid. Obviously I didn't get there, but there are kids that at 5 or 6 years old, they're going to OHL games and looking at this and go, okay, this is my dream. I mean, I've got so many buddies that play in this league now, and it's amazing to see, even in that league, just how fast paced it is and all the skilled players that are playing in this league. Like it's unbelievable to watch a game of hockey and to be able to follow it, as you say. Like there's so many line changes and everything. You never know who's on the ice. If you're at a hockey game, you're not sitting there on your phone like not paying attention, because if your favorite player is on the ice, you've got to know, because you're out there for 30, 40 seconds and then someone else is on the ice. So it's that quick. So yeah, it's awesome.
Now, a fun question here. Sam, have you ever followed field hockey? So, I mean, it's very different. We understand that, but I mean, the basic element is pretty much the same. So, do you follow field hockey in any sort of ways? Probably in the Summer Olympics. Do you catch it at all? Or do people in Canada in general have an interest for field hockey?
Unfortunately, I mean, I can't speak for all Canadians, but from my standpoint, the real sport I think in the summer, I mean, the area I live in is definitely baseball, with the Toronto Blue Jays, of course. So um, I've never really been into field hockey. I kind of understand what it is, just seeing like highlights and that. But obviously, up in the area where I am, we have lacrosse and stuff in the summers and baseball. So that's kind of the big thing for sure. So yeah, it definitely would be something that I think would be cool to kind of get into. I know university teams in NCAA in the States do have it, and that's kind of cool to see. But up in Canada, I don't think honestly it's a big real thing, because obviously hockey's our sport, so they don't like, you've got lacrosse and baseball in the summer, so we don't really do field hockey that much, I don't think.
Honestly, I can't even blame you. I secretly enjoy ice hockey more than field hockey when it comes to watching it. The entertainment is just superb. And I love when, as much as we already spoke about contact sports, the contact that is allowed in the NHL, I just love those fights and the brawls that they are allowed to break into officially, and then they just have to sit out for a few minutes. Um, my next question is, who's your ice hockey sporting idol? Just your all-time favorite?
Yeah, so growing up, probably idolizing, obviously, at the age I am at 21, I was 6 or 7 when Ovechkin and Crosby came into the league. So, I mean, I wasn't huge in the NHL back then, but definitely watching those guys a little bit. But guys in the OHL like Brian Little and Hunter Tremblay, I mean, Brian Little's definitely an all-time favorite of mine. I mean, it's unfortunate what happened with him in Winnipeg a couple of years ago, taking a shot in the head, and hasn't been able to really play since. But yeah, honestly, Brian Little for sure. I met him when I was like 5 or 6 at like a car dealership in Barrie, and have a photo with him. And I gotta shout out Howie Campbell and the Barrie Colts organization, because last year, before the pandemic started, thankfully, they decided to retire Little's jersey. And I worked for the team as an usher. And so I was able to be at the game, and I was able to meet Little again 15 years after I'd met him already, and get an updated picture with him. So, I mean, that was definitely one of the coolest moments. I mean, it's got to be Brian Little for sure, as a 5 or 6 year old, just having a Colts jersey on and meeting him at a car dealership of all places. I mean, it was a meet and greet where it was set up where you could go do it. And I know my mom took me down and did it, and it was definitely the coolest thing, because these players that are 16 to 21 years old, they're coming up after games to sign autographs for these kids, and it makes the kids' days. Because I was that kid at one point, and I know what it meant to be waiting after games for 20 or 30 minutes for these guys to come up, win or loss. And I honestly think it ties back to Dale Hawerchuk, the late and great Dale. Unfortunately, passing away last year. That was definitely tough to anyone who knew him. I mean, I knew him for about 10 years as a Colts fan, and I remember the day I found out that he had passed from cancer. I sitting in my bed just crying, because how difficult it was to hear. He had gotten it and then beaten it, and then it came back again. And I mean, the character that he brought into the arena in Barrie, it was unbelievable. I definitely miss you, buddy. The one thing in the arena, on the stairs down to where the Colts dressing room is, it's a mural of him, and it says, "Don't miss your opportunity." Because honestly, in junior hockey and in hockey in general, it's over within a blink of an eye. And you could go into a junior arena at 16, play your first game in the OHL, and then it seems like 10 minutes later, you're a 20-year-old getting your plaque at the end of your career. That's how fast it goes.
Absolutely, Sam. Any playoff? Anyone you want to shout out for having like an awesome playoff series so far this year?
Yeah, Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar. Holy crap, those two are unbelievable. I mean, McKinnon's definitely winning MVP of this playoffs. I know I said to you guys before, Colorado's a wagon, and they're unstoppable. The other one is Tampa Bay. Nikita Kucherov played 0 games in the regular season out of 56 games. Comes back in the playoffs, and he has 17 points in 2 rounds. So him and Stamkos are absolutely terrorizing the Carolina Hurricanes right now.
Thanks so much, Sam. This is really helpful. And for our viewers and listeners, it is NHL playoffs time. So if you're looking to get into ice hockey, now's a great time to start. Do check it out. And Sam obviously helped provide some good guidance into kind of a few players to look out for. So Sam, thank you so much. For all our viewers and listeners, we'll have Sam's story and where to follow him in our description. So do check him out and use that to kind of learn more about ice hockey for you as well. Sam, again, thank you so much. For our viewers, listeners, do like, share, comment. Let us know if there are any other sports you'd like for us to cover. Any additional thoughts on ice hockey, do feel free to leave them in the comments. And with that, thanks so much. Signing off, and we'll catch you next week. Thanks so much.